Daddy, I appreciate the fact that you are courageous enough to agree that you made a mistake. You said it is wrong if you say that if you don't pay your tithe, you will not make heaven. I appreciate you, Daddy. And I also want to use this as a medium to apologize to you if my words 7 years ago about this tithing issue were very harsh. I want to say this. 7 years ago, when I came with the message of tithing, even Abel Damina then was still paying tithe and collecting tithe. It was my message, and there's a video to prove this, where Abel Damina said, I heard this guy, I did not like his approach, but he raised doctrinal issues. So the Abel Damina movement you are seeing today started with Daddy Freeze in 2017. After my expose on tithing on Linda Ikeji's channel. That is where this started from. Now, Daddy Gio, I must say this with all respect and humility. Tithing was an old Jewish custom meant only for the Jews. And there's only one set of people that can collect it. And those are the Levites, a tribe out of the 12 tribes of Israel, as you may call them. Levi was one of the 12 sons of Jacob, specifically one of the sons of Jacob and Leah. And scripture shows us with all clarity his descendants were the only people who were allowed to collect tithe. Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa pastors cannot collect tithe. It's only for the Levites. Now, a lot of people will spring up the argument of Abraham giving tithe to Melchizedek, and they use Hebrews chapter 7 as a backbone for it. And here's the dilemma with that particular scripture. When Abraham lost his cousin Lot to those who kidnapped him, and he went to go and try to get them back in Genesis chapter 14, Hebrews chapter 7 verse 1 describes what happens as I studied the New Testament in Greek. The New Testament was originally written in Koine Greek, and the Greek Bible uses a phrase, Kopesh ton Basilion, meaning Kopesh, slaughter, Basilion, king, slaughter of the kings. So what happened was Abraham went to war to try to get his nephew Lot back. And after he succeeded, he plundered. Those days when you go to war, you take everything those people have, their wives, their children will be your slaves, their men will be your servants. They plundered, took their gold. And as he was coming back in Genesis chapter 14 from 18 to 20, you'll see that he met Melchizedek, who was a priest of Salem. He had no beginning and no end, and he was a representation of Christ in the Old Testament. However, here's where it gets tricky. Melchizedek gave him bread and wine and blessed him, and Abraham gave him a tithe, 10% of what he plundered from war. Not from his salary, not from his income, not from his animals, not from his farm, but from the plunder, the Kopesh ton Basilion. And when he finished doing that, the king of Sodom came to meet him and said, Abraham, you may take everything that you've taken, but please let my men go. And Abraham said, I will not take a thong of a sandal or a thread from you, so you not say you're the one that made Abraham rich. So Abraham returned the entire 90% back to where he got it from, the king of Sodom. Now, the equivalent of this is in today's world, if you collect your salary and you want to take 10% and give to your Melchizedek. Remember, no Nigerian pastor qualifies to be a Melchizedek. Melchizedek had no beginning and no end. All Nigerian pastors have beginning and they will have end. If you give your Melchizedek, let's imagine he's your pastor 10%. You know what you're supposed to do with the remaining 90%? You're supposed to return it back to where you got it from. That's how to tithe like Abraham. Now, Pastor Adeboye, with all respect, you did raise that some people gave up to 50%, and that's Christian giving. Absolutely. And Acts chapter 2 and Acts chapter 4 clearly explain this. But if you read clearly, the money was not given to pastors to build church. The money was not given to pastors to maintain church. The money was not given to pastors to take care of themselves and send their children abroad to school. The money was not used to build schools. The money was given to the poor. Then some will say, Daddy Freeze, how do I support a ministry and how do I make a ministry grow? Absolutely, there's space for that. And you find that in Luke chapter 8, verse 1 to 3. Christ's ministry was supported. But the problem is, support was voluntary and there was no special blessing attached to it. So when you say give 30% or 50%, yes, but not to the pastors, to the poor. And I quote Acts chapter 4, verse 32 all the way through 36, gives us clear explanation what it was meant for the poor, only the poor. Now, I want to use this medium to appreciate some pastors. I want to appreciate Pastor Toby Adegboyega, my good friend and brother. I want to use this medium to also appreciate Apostle Suleiman Johnson of Omega Fire Ministry, Pastor Bolaji Dowu of Harvesters, and of course, Pastor Sam Adeyemi of Daystar Church for creating a forum for discussion. I don't agree with them all the time. They don't agree with me all the time. But there is a forum for discussion. They don't look at me and throw me and say, oh, this one is going to fire. They create a forum for conversation. And Daddy Adeboye, as our daddy, please create this forum. We don't have to agree. Even Paul and Barnabas quarreled in Acts chapter 15. But what is imperative is that there are conversations in church. And this would lead to the furtherance of the gospel